back to Google Guardian Online Learning Academy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This next session is going to be Google Forms with Frederick Ballou. Frederick, thank you so much for joining me today. I am very appreciative.
You are so welcome. This is one of my favorite tools.
It's great. All right, take it away.
Will do. Despite what the title card may have said on YouTube, I'm Frederick Ballou. I go by Rick Ballou, but you're not going to be talking to me directly, so it doesn't matter. I'm here to talk about Google Forms, and it is one of the best tools for teachers for not only figuring out what your students have learned, but frankly, gathering information about you, the parent. You probably have filled out one of these forms, whether you know it or not. So what we're going to talk about today is how you will be interacting with Google Forms, specifically what they look like, why they are used, where the data goes when it's all collected, and in the event that the child you're in charge of has to create a Google Form that you're working with within Chrome, and how to do just some basic questions that your child or student or whatever might be asked to do. First, let's talk about where to find them. So we're in our Chrome browser. We're going to hit the plus button, and I often will go to, some people call it the waffle, other people call it Google Apps, and you can often find it in here, but I don't see it. Do you? Where could it be? It's sometimes hidden way down there. So it's, especially if you're using your Gmail and the students aren't using their specific one, Forms isn't going to be in the top several. You can fix that though, because you can just grab it and drag it where you want it. So if you want it further up, you can do that. But let's be honest, you're probably not going to be creating forms that often. So you're probably not going to need to worry about it. But since I'm showing you it, I'm going to click on it. So when you click on Google Forms, or when you type in docs.google.com or forms.google.com, or go to this guy over here and do the thing with the thing, it's going to bring up start a new form, and it's going to give you some templates that you could potentially use. But I'm going to be honest, that's not what you're going to be seeing. Most likely, what's going to happen is you as a guardian are going to receive an email with a form attached. And what that would look like is this. You would receive something that you click on it, and it'll bring up this with questions on it. So what they look like, they're going to look like this. They come in different flavors. You can get them. Let's go back to my forms again. Let's go here. Just click on this guy, and that brings you back to the Forms home. It can look like that. It can look like this. The different background colors, oh, those are really similar. Anyway, you have a lot of different templates that your teachers can choose from, and they can put really fancy graphics up here and stuff like that. So they're going to look like that, and they're going to have blanks in them. The things that you need to watch for if you're filling them out is you're going to be looking for the things that have a red dot. These red dots are the ones that you have to fill out in order to complete. Notice this one doesn't have a red dot, which means you can leave it blank. But more often than not, there's going to be something that says required. Okay, so that is, as the guardian, if you receive something from your student's teacher, school, whatever, that's asking for information from you, what they're looking for are these things that are required. Often it's going to also ask for you to include your email account. So you'll want to provide that too, and it's most likely going to be a little red dot. So again, that's what they look like. Why they are used is, again, to gather data. If this is something coming to you, the guardian, there's a very good chance they need to know stuff about your student. All right. If your child is filling one out in school or is assigned one, it's often going to be used as a formative assessment. That's teacher talk. Formative assessment is a way for the teacher to find out what your student is and where they are in their learning. So it's often, a formative assessment is often done before they start teaching something, as they're teaching something, and then eventually they might do a fancy one called Nikki, what's that called again? When it's not formative, it's
Summative.
Thank you. It came to me eventually. But what they're going to do is they're going to gather the data with the formative assessments. It's going to let them know, okay, your student needs to work on X, Y, and Z. They already know A, B, and C. So the question then becomes is why they're used. Where does the data go? Where does all this go? Well, with Google Forms, it ends up going to something called another Google tool called Google Sheets. So for example, this is one that I'm using for my Google Innovator project. If when looking at it from the teacher side, this is where I can add questions, I can add sections, I can import questions, I can do all sorts of fancy stuff to make it look pretty, right? But when they fill out a form, it's the answers go here in responses, and I can then, the teacher can see it two different ways. One way is they can see it here with all the data, kind of the big picture view, right? And this shows what people have entered. This gives you an idea of what the responses look like. These are the things that, the answers to the questions, but often it goes and populates something called a Google Sheet. So if I click on that, I click on responses, and then right here, this little icon is for Google Sheets. So when I click on that, it's going to open up my Google Sheet. And so the data that is collected will be the timestamp when the form was filled out, and the person has clicked the submit button. So again, what the form looks like is this. At the very bottom, after they clicked submit, that's the timestamp that's going to show up here. All the questions that you can see here, the questions themselves, like this, come up as headers here, and then the information that whoever has filled it out goes here. So all that data gets dumped into a Google Sheet. The teacher then can use their fancy Google Sheet magic, which I'm not going to get into. Databases scare a lot of people, so I'm not going to show you that. But the teacher can use their database wizardry to understand more of the data that they've received. But again, you can also find it here if they want the fancy big picture view, and it'll look like that. Huh, neat. I was getting a phone call, and it came up and it said cyberbacker. I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to answer it. That sounds super suspicious. Anyway, so this is what they look like. This is why they would be used, is to gather data, either from you to find out stuff, formative, summative assessments of your students or your children, your whatever, you're the guardian, the person you're in charge of. And then it all gets dumped into a Google Sheet. So that's the what, the why, and the where the data goes. So yes, data magic. Let's talk about how to use them, because there is the possibility if your student that you're in charge of is required to possibly create a Google form. Here's a little bit of the magic. This is how it is done. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to once again come to forms. I'm going to click on it. Now we're going to just go ahead and click blank. This is going to give you an idea of what a form looks like. So if your student is required to create a form, this is what they would have to do. Starts out as untitled form. So let's give it a title. Let's do something creative like title. After you've done that, notice, unlike other Google tools, it doesn't automatically give it up here. That's because this is what the children, the person, whoever is going to see is this title. This is for your reference. So when I click on it, it gives the title, but I could call it something else. Demo. So that I know later when I'm going through my list of things that are in list view, and that's the only way to organize your drive. Don't let anyone tell you different. List view. When you see your list view drive, you'll see this there as demo. Here, then, it gives you the option of, you can put in a form description, you can add some stuff, you can even get real fancy and add a video if you want to, explaining how to fill out the form. And again, if you're helping your student do this, let them figure it out. They can go click happy with the buttons. What you need to know are these basic things right here. There are just a few types of questions you can use. You can do short answer. I say a few type, and then it brings up this huge list. Okay, there are a bunch of questions you can use. There's short answer, there's paragraph, multiple choice, checkbox, drop down, linear scale, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things to choose from. If you do multiple choice, you're going to have to come up with answers here, right? Multiple choice typically means you can only have one correct answer, and checkboxes allows for multiple different correct answers. So let's do multiple choice. Let's call this untitled question. I think that's a great title. Let's go option 1, and then let's add other. That looks good. Let's go ahead and make it required. So now the person has to answer this untitled question with either option 1 or other. You know what? Let's also add option 2. So those are their choices. Then what you can do is this lets you can then choose if they come in different orders. There's a lot of things to make this frankly more confusing than you need to worry about. If your student needs to create something where if they answer this, they go to this section, they answer that, they go to that section, this is where you do that. Again, if this is what they have to figure out, this is their assignment, not yours, so you don't have to know this. But you have the idea of how can say, isn't there a way to? Then let them figure it out. Because the reality is, it's their assignment. So you shouldn't have to be doing it. But if you are, these are just some of the basic tools that you have available. So once you've created it, I'm really happy with this one. I like my untitled question with option 1 and option 2. That feels like enough to me. So what you can do then is send it. This is how it would be sent to a grown-up or another student, or probably how it got sent to you. You would click send, and you can choose to send it to an email and just send it right from here. This is more likely how it happened. They clicked this button and then clicked shorten URL, and then just copy this, and then wherever they end up pasting it is how the person will fill it out. Chances are how you ended up filling out if they're going to need school lunch on the field trip or not, right? That's the kind of thing that this is going to be used for from your student's teacher to you. You could also, I suppose, put it on Facebook or Twitter. I mean, it's an option. I don't know too many teachers who are going to do that. Another fancy thing you can do is it can be embedded on a website, but again, that's not anything you need to know. And if you click this button, collect emails, what it's going to do is it adds another thing right here. It's going to add an extra question where they have to enter a valid email. So if you don't add the email question, you have a chance to, at this point, choose that and message, I've invited you to fill out a form, and then click send when you're ready to go. So that would be shorten URL, copy, and then you now have it copied to your clipboard. You can send it to whoever. This is what it looks like, a really fancy quiz that we came up with. And then you can, this would be something that the person filling it out would do, send me a copy of my response, which can be done if you include the email. But otherwise, that's the what, why, where, and how. When I didn't include, because the answer to this is all the time. Google Forms are a great tool to be used at any point in the learning of your student, for them not only to show what they know formatively and ultimately summatively, a way for your teacher to find out information from you. And in the event that they have to create one, it has a lot of tools for them to use to get data from whoever they're asking questions of. So to sum up, I've been Frederick Ballou. You can find me on Twitter. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And actually, I wanted to point out one of the things that you had said is you don't know if and when they would need to share it to Facebook. We actually had an assignment last year that one of my students had where they had to collect information from 100 kids on a survey. And the best way to do that was for their parent to share it out there. And they got all kinds of information because then they had to go and graph it and do all the percentages and stuff. So cool. I've actually seen that being used.
That's cool. Yeah.
It was very cool assignment.
Yeah. I'm thinking as a teacher, I would never want to do that, but I could see where it might be a student doing it. Yeah, totally.
Yes. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you stepping in and doing this and covering our forms for us. Guys, at any point in time, you can watch this session again over and over at the same link. It will live forever here. We have more sessions coming up tomorrow and the next day. Every one of them can be found at the website located below. So give us a visit, and thank you very, very much for coming.